The cow was dead, belly up in the dust, tongue lolling out like it had heard the world's worst joke. Sheriff Logan Harper stood over her, hat tipped low against the sun, jaw tight as a rusted barbed wire fence. Right then, he realized two things. 1. Daisy didn't die of natural causes. 2. Somebody had drained every drop of water from his livestock tanks in the middle of a godforsaken drought. Taped to the fence post, flapping like a middle finger in the wind, was a bright pink flyer. Cedar Hollow HOA, water use violation, rectified. Logan didn't need to read further. He knew exactly who was behind it. And Lord help her, because she didn't know she'd just declared war on the sheriff of Oak Ridge County. Logan didn't shout or stomp. He exhaled slow and deep, eyes tracking the dry tanks, the cracked mud at the bottom like the earth itself was ashamed. The cattle lowed restlessly, some nudging empty troughs, waiting for a miracle. He pulled out his phone, snapped a photo of the flyer, and sent it to his deputy with 2 words, "We got a situation." That done, he crumpled the flyer and stuffed it in his pocket like evidence from a crime scene, which, in his book, it was. Brenda Mitchell had always been the kind of woman who'd take a coloring book and complain it didn't come with instructions. Since moving to Oak Ridge County 3 years ago, she'd made it her mission to bring order to the chaos of rural life. Order meaning beige fences, no visible mailboxes, and God forbid you hang laundry outside. She lived in Cedar Hollow, a cul-de-sac of 10 houses that looked like suburban witnesses in a rural murder trial. The rest of the town called it the compound, half joking, half fearful. Brenda didn't just head the HOA, she was the HOA, judge, jury, and executioner, all in capri pants and orthopedic sandals. Logan figured she'd come after him eventually. Everyone else had gotten their turn. Farmer Joe was fined for unauthorized wildflower patches. The Methodist Church had to remove a decade-old neon cross because it disrupted the visual landscape. But draining a ranch's water tanks in Texas during a heatwave? That wasn't overreach. That was blood sport. The real kicker, Logan's ranch wasn't even in the Cedar Hollow HOA. He lived a full mile past the boundary. But Brenda, in her infinite pettiness, had started expanding her jurisdiction. At first, it was flyers, then fines. Now, apparently, she had foot soldiers doing her dirty work. Logan decided that was worth a visit. Brenda's office was her garage, converted into a tyrant's den, filing cabinets, a folding table with a bell, and a homemade sign reading "President on Duty." It smelled like air freshener and rage. Logan didn't knock. He stepped in and tipped his hat. Brenda looked up from her binder, blinking like she hadn't expected the law to walk in uninvited. "Sheriff," she said, drawing the word out like a challenge. "How can I help you? You drain my tanks?" She gave a tight-lipped smile. "Your livestock tanks were non-compliant with Article 7B of the HOA Covenant. Stagnant water is a breeding ground for disease. We took preemptive action." "You mean sabotage?" "I mean compliance," she said, folding her hands. "It's my duty to ensure harmony in our community. This ain't a community, it's a town. And I'm not under your HOA." "Not yet," she said, cool as iced tea. "We've recently expanded our perimeter under the Extended Influence Clause." Logan stared. "The what?" Brenda flipped to a laminated page, tapped it proudly. "It allows us to enforce standards within a 2-mile radius of Cedar Hollow. It's all perfectly filed with the county clerk." "Ma'am," Logan said slowly, "that clause isn't legally binding. You can't govern people who never agreed to be governed. This ain't a country club, it's Texas. People have guns, livestock, and dead cows because someone decided to play HOA Batman." Brenda arched a brow. "If you're suggesting I personally drained your tanks, you're mistaken. It was a community action. I'll keep that in mind when the lawsuits start flying." She leaned forward, voice sweet and venomous. "You, of all people, should appreciate law and order, Sheriff. Or do you prefer chaos?" "I prefer water for my cattle." Outside, the sun baked the pavement into a mirage. Logan stepped out without another word, the air crackling around him. He called Deputy Tessa and told her to dig up every record the HOA had filed in the last year. Find out if they've got legal ground, he said. And if they don't, I want every damn name on those fake committees. His next stop was Rusty's Tavern, where locals vented and drank cheap beer under a leaky roof. Word had spread about the dead cow, the tanks, the HOA overstep. Logan listened. Old Miss Clara, who ran the church bake sales, whispered, "They fined me $200 for aggressive quilts." Farmer Joe, nursing a Lone Star, added, "She told me my scarecrow violated height restrictions." A scarecrow. Brenda wasn't just annoying, she was a low-grade tyrant wrapped in clipboards and laminated bylaws. She was extending her grip, and Oak Ridge County's folks were letting it happen because no one had stood up. Until now. Later that night, Logan walked his land's perimeter with a flashlight, checking the tanks, securing the gates. That's when he spotted it, half buried in the grass, a small drone, blinking red. He picked it up, mud caking its rotors, camera intact. Someone had been watching, surveying. This wasn't just HOA nonsense. This was surveillance, possible criminal trespassing. Logan's mind shifted from annoyance to calculation. He wasn't just going to stop Brenda, he was going to dismantle whatever shadow organization she thought she was running. Tomorrow, he'd turn over that drone. He looked at the night sky, stars sharp and wide. Somewhere, a woman in a floral visor was drinking chamomile tea, dreaming of cul-de-sac conformity. She had no idea what she'd started. She'd drained the wrong man's tanks. The next morning, Logan Harper sat at his kitchen table, coffee cold, the dismantled drone in pieces across the wood. He'd pried it open with a bomb text care, revealing a tiny memory card and a serial number etched into the frame. This wasn't a hobby drone, it had thermal tracking and a zoom lens, the kind hunters used to track deer. This was surveillance, illegal and personal. He slipped the memory card into a reader and opened the files. Low-altitude flyovers of his land, footage of his barns, water tanks, even his back porch. One clip, time-stamped 3 days ago, showed a blurry figure in a wide-brimmed hat, Vince, Brenda's bootlicking HOA security chief, walking his fence line with a hose in one hand and bolt cutters in the other. Logan exhaled slow, the breath before a storm. By mid-morning, he was in his cruiser, heading to the county records office. It smelled of old paper and burnt coffee. Tessa had beaten him there, looking up from a stack of folders with a grim smile. "Found some weird stuff, Sheriff," she said. Brenda registered Cedar Hollow HOA as a nonprofit, but she's been using it like a private business, charging dues, issuing fines, collecting property improvement fees without county board approval. It gets better. She's filed new boundary maps claiming the HOA covers an extra 3 square miles. But the maps aren't stamped by any official. Logan skimmed the files. So, she forged the expansion. Looks that way. Nobody caught it because no one cared until now. Now we care. They drove back, passing familiar fields and rusted mailboxes, every stretch feeling like occupied territory. In the weeks since the tank incident, stories multiplied like fire ants. A single mom was fined for hanging Thanksgiving lights in October. An elderly couple got a lien threat over their wind chimes. Hank Grayson, a grizzled Vietnam vet, had his American flag removed from his porch. No one admitted who did it, but every story ended with a pink flyer and Brenda's cursive signature, like a royal decree. Logan stopped by Hank's place first. The old man stood on his porch, flag in hand, veins bulging. "They came at night, Logan," Hank said, voice shaking with fury. "Middle of the damn night. I put it back up, and they taped a fine to my truck for unregistered political display. Logan promised to look into it. But Hank wasn't alone. Every stop that day brought another story, another pink flyer, another bit of petty tyranny disguised as civic order. Brenda's HOA was a cult wrapped in cul-de-sac rules. Then came the moment that snapped everything sideways. Late that afternoon, a panicked call came over the radio. Livestock barn fire near the Carter property. Logan flipped on his sirens and drove hard. Smoke billowed from a half-collapsed barn, charred beams smoldering. The Carters were shaken but unharmed. Firefighters worked to contain it. Logan knelt near the wreckage, spotting a metal sign in the ashes, a Cedar Hollow HOA sign, community partners stamped across it. Mrs. Carter approached, face streaked and shaking. "We got a notice last week," she said. "Brenda said we were out of compliance because of our barn roof's color. Said she'd issue a removal order. I thought it was empty threats." Logan looked at the scorched earth, the smell of burning hay thick. "You think she did this?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But someone wanted it gone." Logan took photos, collected the sign, and made a vow. If this was tied to the HOA, it wasn't about fines anymore. It was about safety, intimidation. Brenda had crossed a line, and he'd pull her back by her iron blouse collar if needed. Back at the sheriff's office, he sat with Tessa, reviewing everything: drone footage, fraudulent maps, now possible arson. "We've got enough for charges if this were anyone else," Tessa said. "Problem is, people are scared to speak up. Brenda threatens liens, legal action, even evictions. Folks think she's above the law. Not anymore." That night, Logan rewatched the drone footage, pausing on Vince's blurry face. The man had a goatee like a broken rake and a strut that screamed rogue cop. He was always around Brenda, taking orders. Logan decided it was time for a chat. Early next morning, he found Vince parked outside Cedar Hollow, clipboard in hand, finding a teen for unsightly bumper stickers. Logan pulled up, stepped out slow. "Morning, Vince." Vince stiffened. "Sheriff, just doing my community duty." "You got a license for that clipboard?" Vince blinked. "What?" "Nothing," Logan said dryly. "We need to talk about the night of the tank draining. I've got footage of you on my land with bolt cutters." Vince's chest puffed. Brenda authorized a compliance action. It was legal under Section 4B of the Water Management Code. Logan stepped closer. "Section 4B only applies within Cedar Hollow boundaries. My land ain't in it, never was. You stepped onto my property with tools without permission. That's trespassing and tampering. Both criminal." Vince swallowed, bravado thinning. "I was just following orders." "Well, now you're following me to the station." Vince sputtered, but Logan opened the cruiser door. It was less about arresting Vince and more about sending a message. Brenda's empire had run unchecked too long. The law was watching. As Vince sat in a holding cell, fidgeting, Logan called the county attorney. They'd need injunctions to freeze the HOA's authority until an audit was done. It'd be a long fight, but Logan wasn't alone anymore. Oak Ridge County was waking up. Brenda didn't waste time. That afternoon, Logan received an envelope at the sheriff's office with a gold sticker seal, a formal cease and desist from the HOA's Legal Oversight Board, accusing him of harassment, abuse of power, and unauthorized drone recovery. Logan read it thrice, then let out a barking laugh. It was theatrical, written by someone who'd watched too many courtroom dramas with no legal teeth. But it meant Brenda was cornered, and cornered people made mistakes. Later that week, Logan hosted a town hall at the community center, not as sheriff, but as a neighbor. Folks came in droves, farmers in dusty boots, mothers with strollers, retired vets in folding chairs. The place buzzed with nervous energy, like before a thunderstorm. Logan spoke like one of them, laying it out. The HOA had overstepped legally, financially, morally. He showed the drone footage, the illegal boundary filings, and read the flyer's absurd non-compliant hydration structures. Laughter rippled, but it was bitter. He showed Miss Clara's ledger of fines, late fees, violation fees, community disruption charges. "Brenda's not the law," Logan said, voice steady. "She never was. She acted like it because no one pushed back. That ends now." Right on cue, the doors slammed open. Brenda walked in, all the grace of a captain spotting an iceberg, trailed by her loyal trio: Vince, out on bail, Roy, clutching a clipboard, and Gina, The gossip blogger turned HOA secretary, wearing sunglasses indoors. Brenda wore a suit the color of wet cement, her expression matching. "This is a disruption of sanctioned HOA procedure," she shouted, holding up binders. "You're inciting rebellion." "You're not a government," Logan replied calmly. "You're a glorified neighborhood club with delusions of grandeur." She pointed at him. "You'll regret this." "I already regret not dealing with you sooner." The crowd erupted, not chaos, but laughter, clapping, the small-town energy when puppet strings are cut. Brenda turned red, then purple, then pale. She looked like she might faint, but instead pulled a final stunt. She marched forward, slapped a pink citation on the podium, and declared Logan in violation for community defamation. He didn't blink. "Ma'am, you're under investigation for financial misconduct, illegal surveillance, fraud, and property tampering. I'll hold this flyer as evidence. You might want a real lawyer." Brenda stormed out, her footfalls like a broken metronome. Roy followed, but not before Logan handed him a subpoena. Vince pretended to tie his shoe and slipped out. Gina stayed just long enough to delete blog posts before slinking away. Afterward, Logan stood alone as the crowd thinned. Clara brought him apple bars and said, "Well, Sheriff, you just fired the first cannon." He nodded. Now comes the siege. Outside, rain fell for the first time in weeks, soft and steady. Logan stepped into it, letting the drops cool his face. It wasn't over, but Oak Ridge County had turned. The silence was broken, the line drawn. Brenda wasn't just facing resistance, she was facing justice. The storm came slow and deliberate, like a sheriff mounting the gallows. Logan Harper stood outside the courthouse in full uniform, clean boots, badge polished, eyes steeled. It wasn't for show, it was presence. This morning, Brenda's empire of pink flyers, paranoia, and power trips would crumble, document by document, lie by lie, arrest by arrest. Tessa joined him with a file folder so thick it carried moral weight. The audit was damning: misused funds, false statements, coercion. Brenda and her cronies had created fake contractor companies, billing the HOA for money that circled back to them. Roy's emergency preparedness services didn't exist. Vince approved invoices for security upgrades never installed. Gina was paid for digital neighborhood outreach, her blog insulting people's lawn ornaments. Every dime traced, every lie cataloged. Logan nodded, tucked the folder under his arm. Time to go fishing. They started with Roy. He was easy, buying tactical flashlights in bulk at the feed store. Logan greeted him by name, handed him a warrant. Roy sputtered about sovereign citizen rights, citing a YouTube video. Tessa cuffed him mid-quote. Ranchers clapped politely. Next was Gina. She tried deleting her hard drive when she saw them, but Tessa was faster. Gina ranted about cancel culture coming for HOA administrators. Logan laid out the charges. She broke down, realizing this wasn't a slap on the wrist, court, maybe jail, with bad lighting and state-issued uniforms. She cried to the cruiser. Vince turned himself in, holding a box of muffins, hoping for leniency. Logan took the muffins, gave them to Clara at the front desk, and booked him. He asked Vince one thing. "Did you ever believe in this?" Vince shrugged. "I just liked having a badge." Then there was Brenda. She wasn't home. Her SUV was gone, her mailbox stuffed with returned citations and threats in red marker. Logan knew she wouldn't run, she was built for confrontation. That afternoon, word spread, Brenda had barricaded herself in the Cedar Hollow HOA office, her garage fortified with folding chairs, flower pots, and a table against the door. A whiteboard declared it a temporary independent civic enclave. She'd named herself president of a neutral legal territory. Logan drove out alone. Brenda stood in her driveway with a megaphone, wearing a sash labeled founder and waving new pink flyers, sheriff in violation of ethical boundaries. She shouted as he approached, "This is harassment. An unlawful siege of a registered domestic governing body." Logan held up the warrant. Brenda Mitchell, you're charged with fraud, illegal expansion of governance boundaries, surveillance without a warrant, tampering with private property, and misappropriation of community funds. You can't arrest a sitting HOA president, she snapped. You're not sitting, you're standing in a driveway shouting at a sheriff. I'll call the governor. You can call Dr. Phil, you're still coming with me. Brenda refused, so Logan walked past the barricade, stepping over planters and a confused cat, and placed a hand on her shoulder. She froze. It's over, he said, calm but final. Something shifted in her, maybe his voice, maybe the neighbors watching, phones recording, waiting for justice, not vengeance, but exasperation. She'd made life miserable too long, fines, threats, rules, all for control. Now the control was gone. She didn't resist as he led her to the cruiser. That night, Oak Ridge County felt lighter. Fear was gone. Logan sat on his porch, boots up, a cold drink in hand, Clara's peach cobbler in his lap. The wind rustled the dry grass, but it wasn't hot anymore, a reset. Across the street, kids set up Halloween decorations early, laughing as they hung glow-in-the-dark skeletons. No citations, no complaints. Tessa called as the sun dipped. All booked. Brenda's trying to file an appeal from lockup, claiming we violated her HOA Miranda rights. Logan chuckled. Before or after she declared secession? Both. Good work today. Same to you. Logan walked to his gate, looking at the sign he'd nailed up weeks ago. Private property, HOA free zone. It started as a joke. Now it was a line in the dirt. Oak Ridge County would rebuild, fences mended, tanks full, no fines for wind chimes. Hearings and trials would come, but Brenda wouldn't run things anymore. The town had its spine back, and somewhere, Daisy the cow was smiling in cattle heaven, knowing her death sparked a reckoning. Logan tipped his hat to the stars and went inside. Cedar Hollow's tyranny was over, and his kind of law, fair, firm, and free, prevailed.